So we're back with Bryan Danielson's AEW run. And yes, we're on match number 32, which we're off our little trios little run. But we have still got a tag team match on AEW Rampage with Jon Moxley and Bryan in the BCC versus Matt Sydal and Dante Martin. Now, obviously, the interesting thing about this match is this starts our build towards Double or Nothing's match, which, if you don't, I don't want to spoil what it is if people care, but point is, Jericho and Jake Hager, that piece of shit, are on the commentary, and along with Regal, and the build is basically, they've been roped into the Jericho Appreciation Society's feud with Eddie Kingston, so that's what the build, and obviously we don't cover the promos. Bryan and Eddie had some tension, but yeah, this has resulted in this match tonight. Now, this match was the main event of the Rampage, and honestly, it done really fucking well. I was very pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed this one, in the sense of, it doesn't do anything insane. Bryan at the start of it looks a lot more, I don't want to say vicious, but a lot more heavy-hitting than he normally is. He's instantly with Dante Martin, and Dante Martin's getting his fucking elbows, all these elbows, these kicks, and they look a bit more venomous, a lot more speed to them, which I really enjoyed. Especially the elbows to the head, obviously, so Bryan's basically beating the piss out of Dante Martin from the get-go. Tags in Moxley, and when Moxley tags in, Moxley starts taking him on, and basically after that, he basically forces Dante Martin to tag out, and then Sydal tags in, and Sydal on the hot tag looks better. I've never really watched Sydal, but I've, heard a lot of people talk about Sydal, and after the hot tag, he looks pretty good. There's some kicks he does, so especially a drop kick looks really fucking good on Moxley. Moxley sells it pretty well. Moxley eventually, Sydal tries to do a bit too much. Moxley ends up getting him in a bit too much of a hold, catches him mid-air, slams him. So, there's a lot, King Kong Lariat, shit like that with Moxley. Really, Moxley and Sydal is a main meat of the match, so to speak. Then Dante Martin gets tagged in. And when they tag Dante Martin in, he starts taking on Moxley, but it doesn't really go as well. And eventually it does turn into a tag again, where Bryan comes in. And when Bryan comes in, it kind of loses its track because it's coming to it's going basically 2v2 at that point. And what that happened really, I think it was Dante Martin or whoever is outside the ring. Bryan does a flying knee, that looked pretty good. But even after that, like during the match as well, Moxley basically takes Sydal out of the match by getting him into a choke outside the ring, and then it was Bryan and Dante Martin again. The latter end of the match, I will say, is very fucking good, very good in the sense of, don't get me wrong, it's mainly Moxley at this point, not really Bryan, but like, they really amp up. One, they put on Dante Martin over on commentary, huge, saying the guy's got a future. And it's a shame to see how over they were. They were really over with Dante Martin. You could tell they were pushing that guy, and it just didn't really go anywhere. Shame, because he's still good. And point is, he's like, lots of the kickouts, Dante Martin. Like, you do feel like the upset's on. At some point, you do. Like, don't get me wrong. It shouldn't have be happening, really, but that's why it's an upset. It feels like the upset was a possibility here. Dante Martin getting these kickouts, obviously, on Moxley and even on Bryan, and Bryan looks at him in disgust and starts kicking him. I love that. Even with Moxley like taunting them, and then he still, specifically with the pair of them, not even just Martin on this, like when he does that, he's asking for more, and they just, Sydal ends up kicking it in the head. Stuff like that, I did enjoy that. I added this match a bit more character than what it needed. The finish is very simple considering what we got last time. I will say, before I even talk about the finish, Dante Martin's air is ridiculous here. He does this one flip that's just like so picture perfect. It's incredible onto Moxley. And then the finish itself, the finish is great. Even with, again, I want to talk about this before the finish. Bryan has Dante Martin in this hold where you can hear Dante. It's at the start of the match, admittedly. But when he's doing it, like, you can hear Dante Martin screaming in agony. So, it really is brutal from Bryan yet again. But finally, to talk about the finish. The finish is basically, it was Moxley, they were kicking out of the spots. And then Moxley ends up hitting the pile driver and then going for the elbows. But then, whoever, I forget who the finish was actually on, admittedly, from Moxley. But then the tag partner come in, and then, no, I think it was on my Sydal, and then Dante Martin tried to make the save. Bryan come in and stopped him, got him in the triangle position and start doing the elbows. So they're both still doing simultaneously the finishes again, which they've been doing, obviously with Utah. That was pretty cool. And when they done that, I think it basically made he didn't tap. I thought he tapped. He didn't tap. Oh no, he just basically. I think it just called off. I don't think he tapped anyway. There was a point where Dante Martin was at a pin with Bryan, with specifically a label lock, and the resilience he shows there again puts him over massively, forcing it into I forget what the hold it is, but I think it was the mutilation where he gets the foot on the rope. That was pretty good. That's where Bryan looks at him in disgust. That's the stuff I like. Again, adds the match a lot more character, specifically with how I like Bryan. I like Bryan a bit more condescending, like that disgust type of thing, especially against people like this. And it works. The match ends. They, obviously, put their arms up, and then they're walking back. Jericho and the rest of the JAS come out, start attacking them. Same with Kingston and stuff comes to the save, but the show ends straight away. But that's the match, and like I said, it didn't need to have this much character, it didn't need to have this much interest. I know it's building double or nothing match, but still, it serves it well. It had no reason. Again, they put Dante Martin over heavy. Matt Sydal looked good here. Moxley and Bryan as a team always work. Both singles guys are obviously going to work. It's a fun match. It really is, and it's like, again, it didn't need to be. It really didn't need to be. It's the ones I respect, and honestly, the more that Lonzy, this is just how good Bryan is, and obviously in tandem Moxley too, where we all know that, where this could have easily been a foaming in 10-minute match, because the match isn't it's only 10 minutes. It's like a back end, and it's like, there you go. They didn't have to do that, but they did. They put a lot of character in it, did a lot of work in it. Dante Martin, again, that's the real, focus of this match, is putting him over. But even between them, again, they didn't have to have that, them kickouts, that kind of resilience spots for Dante Martin. And even then, with the character work, again, with Moxley being cocky, doing all that shit. And then, obviously, Bryan being the more condescending type. It worked. It really worked. I really enjoyed this one. Again, it's... But the start, Bryan seems a lot more brutal than what he usually is at this point, so that was pretty fun. But overall, as a match, for a main event on Rampage, just out of nowhere, it didn't need to have this much in it, and it really felt like it developed itself, and I really enjoyed that. I really did. So I can only commend this one. It's one of the more fun ones, especially after this little run before we get back to singles and different feuds. This feel like after post the honeymoon period of the BCC, this works. I really enjoyed this. Honestly, I think this was a excellent little way to do this. But either way, fun match. Honestly, fun match. Didn't expect to enjoy this one as much as I did, but I genuinely did. So that's my thoughts on Bryan and Moxley at the BCC versus Sydal and Dante Martin on AEW Rampage in 2022. Let me know what your thoughts on this match are. What's your opinion on Dante Martin? I like him. It's sad to see how it went, but also with Sydal too. And yeah, thoughts on the Bryan run so far. Again, I'm always going to watch that because it's fun.